what we are faced with is the potentiality, within a relatively short period of time, that a process will occur, especially if the so-called environmentalist program is adopted. If an environmentalist policy is applied to the present situation, cap and trade. Cap and trade is Hitler policy. It's mass murder. If that policy were to be adopted under these conditions, these global conditions, then the population of the planet would fall rapidly from 6.7 billion people to less than 2. And less than 2 billion people is the policy of the British monarchy, as stated repeatedly by Prince Philip. The policy is to reduce the world population to less than 2 billion people by cap and trade methods. So as long as the U.S. government supports cap and trade, as long as the Obama administration supports cap and trade, you're looking for a genocide globally and in the United States beyond belief. Now, this coincides with a phenomenon which there is some debate. But the debate is not about the danger of the present swine flu and related problems. What has happened is the breakdown, as always, the breakdown of a physical economy, particularly a global physical economy, has been happening recently, always leads to the outbreak of conditions for mass pandemics. And we have a virtual explosion of a global mass pandemic situation on our hands today. As long as the present policies, the present economic policies of the present administration, the present Obama administration, are continued, there is nothing you can do. You may inhibit the problem, but you can't stop it. We're now in a breakdown crisis. The preconditions for mass death throughout the planet are already there. So unless the Obama administration is induced to change its policy radically from everything it has done since the trip to London by President Obama, if that is not done, we're on a global catastrophe beyond belief. And no part of the world is exempt from that catastrophe. This is global. There are other things. People don't think in terms of what a global system is. They take the case of China and Russia as two primary cases. Russia to a lesser degree, China to a greater degree. China was induced to reorient itself to become an export economy. We dumped and closed down U.S. industries. We transported that production to China. And China's cheap labor replaced U.S. labor. We shut down our factories. We closed down our production capabilities, and we exported it to China. Why? Because China would work more cheaply than we would. So now China is faced with a situation where its whole economy is on the verge of a general collapse. Because not only is the collapse of the world market through this financial collapse collapsing the economy of China, but China has no possibility under the present system of ever recovering from this collapse, which will only become worse. So as long as the present world international monetary system and policies continue, China is condemned to vast rates of mass death. And other parts of the world as well. Russia was not a production export. Essentially, it was a petroleum and gas export. Russia depended upon this. Then Russia found out that, contrary to the opinion of leading circles in Russia, that this crisis in the United States would not affect Russia, it would not affect all of Europe, that they would be exempt. They found very quickly that they're not exempt. And the Russian economy is now in a crisis, a deep crisis, where its present economic policies will not work and will only lead to a perpetuation of this crisis. Europe is crashing. Western and Central European economies are collapsing. The British economy is collapsing. India is not yet collapsing because India has a rather mild degree of export dependency for its economy. Europe is in a hopeless situation. Europe, Western and Central Europe, are presently ungovernable because they have no sovereignty. Globalization has eliminated the factor of sovereignty among the states of Western and Central Europe. The British are also part of this. They are in a dominant position relatively politically, but the British economy is a whole mess. It has no intrinsic, very little intrinsic ability to ever recover under its own power, even under the best policies.